Is going deep a lifelong process for musicians?
Well, we hope so. We can only hope so. So I'm going to use the word hope, because earlier we talked about it in the hope. We didn't need hope. What you needed beyond hope was a recognition of the potential, of its infinite potential. So from a creative viewpoint, that's what there is to say about that. Infinite potential. So if you're playing music, you got to know that what you're stuck on are forms and structures, and they're self-defining or whatever, self-reinforcing, and things you like, maybe prefer to play, and so on. So they are your problem. They're not the solution. In other words, what you play is your problem, not your solution.
Does going deeper result sometimes in, let's say, crisis of conscience or crisis of direction for a musician?
Who knows? So you have to talk to the artists, see if they can even go deeper. See, so it's saying going deeper is a phrase. We don't know who can go any deeper than they are. See, already, where they are. And beyond that, we don't know if they can go any deeper than where the person already is. We don't know that they're open to anything deeper than that. See? And then we're talking about what is your form or your image about yourself that defines you. And can you go beyond that?
Can going deeper be forced on you?
Yeah. Going deeper is forced on you in the presence of tragedy. Say, or losses or death. These things really press hard upon you to go deeper and try to figure out what's going on here. What's going on here? And that's really the issue. What is going on? How much deeper can a person go? And that's a really question for the artist. Have you reached your perceived limit? Because we know that in terms of consciousness, there is no limit. There's a limit to the body, for sure. The body is a limit, and the mind is a limit. Your perception is a limit. Right? Your feeling is a limit. So we have to recognize that whatever you're saying about your music may be your limit, but does it have to be your limit?
Can you separate between going deeper as a musician and going deeper as a person?
Well, if you're going deeper as an individual, if there is such a thing, we're assuming that, it's nice phraseology, well then you're deeper as a musician already. And the deep is deep. So, yeah.
And is the converse true? Can you go deep as a musician and not go deep as a person?
Well, you can get deeply into music and not touch any evolutionary level of reality. So, because you're so focused doesn't mean you're developing as a human. And I think we've seen that many times in the case of musicians, where they have great musical ability, but they are really short on decency, short on, let's say, grace, short on intelligence, basically, short on culture, say, short on spirituality.
Is expanding one's technique a way of going deeper?
Not necessarily. Because you learn a new scale, you can go a little deeper with a new scale if you want. It depends upon your mind, not the scale. You can't say it's a scale. It's never the scale. And we can also go as far as saying it's never the music, it's you. It depends on the individual.
Does going deeper necessarily show up as better music?
Obviously not. It doesn't show up as anybody's music, as a model or as a standard. We don't know that. Of course, somebody might like it. I mean, the avant-garde artists, some people really love what they're doing. So, yeah, because they have an understanding of the process and maybe the extreme level of whatever it is, expression that's going on there. They can appreciate that. It doesn't mean the person is a good person. Who the artist, might be needing some development in regards to themselves. We don't know that for sure. So it depends on who the artist is and whether or not we know them well enough to see if they're making human development in terms of being heartful people, developing human nature, or just extreme art. And so you can get lost in either one. You can be too much on one and less of an artist, or you can be too much of an artist and less of a human.
So getting deeper can take you out of music entirely then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's deep. Right. Right. Silence is deep, man.
Why is silence not taught as part of music?
Probably because it's understood as not being that important, except when you're talking about musical form, and then silence, pause, boom. We're not paying attention to silence as some kind of solution, or no. But we feel better when we're not being beaten upon by stress. Say stress or karmic conditions. So it doesn't take rocket science intelligence to figure that out. Nobody's beating on you, so you're okay. But that doesn't mean you're conscious of silence. So you're not conscious of it. You're just in a zone where you feel nothing is a problem. But that doesn't mean you found a solution. Because that could be something that's created by time. So you have a pause, a mechanical pause relative to time, and so what you're left there is with absence of something, which you can call silence. But we're talking about the consciousness of silence, and as absence, and as sound, and everything else. So not too many people are interested in that.
Would you say that you as a musician work from the consciousness of silence?
Leave that up to you to determine. I mean, you've read the teachings, you know what we talk about here, so you have to determine that. The music is silence to me anyway, so from that viewpoint, everything is silence.
So can commercial music, popular music also be silence as well?
It can do, yeah, depending on who, right? On the who. It's all silence, really. So the whole universe is just silence.
What role does intention play in silence?
What
role? In other words, does a musician's intention to bring silence in?
You have to be more specific about that. Whose intention creates silence?
Well, let's say, is it possible for intention to create silence?
Of course it's possible. For you to, the intention could be there for you to pay attention. You could have the intention to pay attention to something like silence. Yeah, it's mechanical logic. That doesn't mean you realize silence, particularly for what it is, apart from, let's say, what you recognize it to be in terms of an absence. So.
Is going deeper something that can be put in the form of a daily practice?
Of course. There are many people practicing various techniques to improve themselves or go deeper in their own case. Breathing techniques, say, mindfulness techniques. These are all techniques that are more or less made universally available to people who care to slow down, and we're talking now about slowing down, right, into a certain state of awareness and sensitivity to what's going on. So yeah, there's a lot of people moving in that direction for self-healing purposes, right? Really trying to help themselves to slow down, to pay attention more clearly and carefully to what's going on in their case, in their life, in their world, and in their time here. Yeah. We could use more of that for sure.
And what are your thoughts on the idea of inviting tragedy into your life to create more deepness?
Yeah, that's good too. I mean, you don't have to, it's already there, right? You just turn the news on, it's already in your face. It's everywhere. Tragedy is everywhere. This is a tragic situation. Earth life is tragic by nature. Yeah. 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 So there's plenty of music to go along with it.
It would seem a lot of musicians lead tragic lives. Is that by intention to have source material, or just...
You have to ask the artist. Not here to answer for the artist and how they live and what they live, but we know that tragedy is important to music, otherwise you wouldn't have music. So it's an emotional response. It's a more or less creative, artistic response to feeling. Brokenness, say, and exaltation too, the opposite. Fulfillment, harmony. But you know that.
In fact, that was my next question about, you seem to play as much or more from ecstatic perception, let's say, as tragic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both the same. Right. They're balanced, they're in balance. Right. The major chord and the minor chord. In balance. Put together, there's a dissonance there.
So is that to say that greater ecstasy equals greater tragedy, or the opposite?
It's not saying anything. They are what they are, so it's not to say anything about anything. So I think when it comes to certain things, there's nothing you can say about them. So we can talk theoretically about tragedy, but when you're in the throes of it, when it's heavy, there's nothing to say about it. You know, it goes beyond intellectual discussion.
It seems that tragic music brings some form of release. Can you talk about that for particular?
Well, we're really talking about resonance now. When you're playing from tragedy, then that resonates with peeps, and it lifts them up because then they have recognition there. Say, wow, I experienced that. So it's a form of validation. We hope not reinforcement of the tragedy. See, we don't want to create tragedy. We want to sort of like heal the effects of tragedy. See, so as to recover some sense of functioning. So we have to recover that.
So when you play tragic music, are you playing the emotions of the audience? Are you playing from your own emotions?
All right, it has to be all of it. It has to be all of it, unless I'm playing a little piece, saying, here's tragic music for you. And then that's it. Everybody can hear it for what it's worth, they can relate to it in any which way they want, but that's not real. That's just a piece of music, you know, with minor chords, with a dissonances and so on. It's a painful, you know, expression of harmony. But that's not the real, but yeah, it's a piece, it's like a painting. So you give them a painting, a musical painting, compositions of painting.
Does the state of the audience or the needs of the audience influence whether your music takes a tragic
Well, this music is creative, so because it's creative, it means that very little of it's really written and needing to be written. Very little, because this music is creative in a manner of speaking that is part of a continuum and part of a stream. So we don't really need any pieces. When I'm playing with the right people, we just start playing, keep it going that way. And we can do that. But then there is the opportunity to play composition for the piece, just to bring them to a certain kind of conclusion, see, and maybe a solution. See, play something musically so that they feel there's a solution. They hear, let's say, a musical problem solved. See, they say, so they go home feeling an completion. Maybe they didn't have that before they got there. So they take some of that, it's okay, there's a solution now. And sometimes they come for that, and that's what they get. And sometimes it's much deeper than that. Sometimes they know they're going to be taken out of the body to a whole other place because we're in the sound stream. And that's what the sound stream is, as an alternative reality to human mind stream. We're talking sound stream, not mind stream, so it's not thought, it's sound. And so there's a universe right there in sound that is only accessible when you're playing under certain conditions with others.
So when those powerful sounds are present and being generated, does that eclipse or occlude thought?
It's not thought, but you know, we're not here to parse thought from non-thought. It's ridiculous. So we're not saying it is, but we're not saying it isn't either. The sound depends on what your experience with sound is. Okay. Now you take a person that is more primitive, like primordial people from the jungle, and they hear sound, and they have a certain relationship to sound, as their body and mind are resonating in a very specific way, unique to them because of their condition, their consciousness. And then you have the musical consciousness, and then it hears and judges and analyzes and quantifies and more or less perceives it a certain way, and so then it judges it as being this way, that way, or whatever, classifies it, puts it in context. So one enjoys the sound for what it is, the other one's like analyzing it. It's not really part of that as such, but somewhat to a certain degree.
So, we like to say that this kind of music takes you out. I mean, what does it take you out of?
Well, it takes you out of your reference, whatever your comfort zone is, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling, it defies that. And that's why you go to music. You go to music because you're open. You're being vulnerable to what's going on. So to be taken away by the music, right? Carried on, let's say, to the next point by the music. At least another point in time by the music. So you have that going on. And still, this is different music. Say. And so that this becomes a certain kind of music that is not outside of you. You are the music. See? And that's very different. But you're not music in musical terms. You are the music because you're human nature, and that's what the music is at that point. It's a high expression of human nature. See? And so then there needs to be leadership and there needs to be guidance, because that's a lot of power.
So then that would seem to be a form of liberation as one goes to being as what the music is, as opposed to whatever they were, you know.
Yeah, well, we are beyond music, see, but we need music at the same time. We are beyond self, but we need self. See. We are beyond memory, but we need memories too, because that's what we're made of. You know, this field of almost at times confusing streams. See. So we can be overwhelmed by aspects of it from point to point, depending on what it is. And then for the musician, you want to be able to release some of that, say, process it in a certain way. So to do that, you have to stop thinking in concrete terms with regards to music, and open to more, like we have heard in psychology, stream of consciousness, which is, you know, I think really truer in music than in any other form. It's living. Living sound is key here. So who's living sound, who's living music without having to concretize it.
So would you say that getting taken out by this music kind of creates a realignment for the...
Well, liberational alignment, there's no question about it, because for some people, depending on who came when, it is an exposure, maybe a saturation experience with the way it could be for the individual, see? The way it needs to be for the next individual. Say, oh, I didn't know that it could be this way or that way, and you find out it is that way. So then it becomes an opening for the person. Say, well, I've never heard anything like that before, but if it's done that way, maybe I can do it. See? So we borrow from that, in a manner of speaking, because we're part of it already, but we don't know exactly to what degree we need to be a part of it beyond, you know, the little exposure. And then you say, well, I can take it from here now. Now I know what I need to do because I heard that. Boom, 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 boom. So you heard the door open, or you feel the protection, the door protection. And then you start working from that. Then that carries you to the next step. And then you might need more stimulation if that's how you do it. But life is the source of all inspiration, high and low. When you know how to perceive it and such, when you know how to use it in a manner of speaking, then there it is. It's what it is.
So then is listening only to conventional music a certain form of bondage?
Well, it's limited. It's very, I guess you might say, limited, yeah, basically. It's not all there is. It's a certain track, linear approach to it. And there's a lot of stuff out there. I'm not going to say that you can't hear enough, you know, that there's enough diversity. There's no inspiration. You can't say that. Music is infinite. And so humans have infinite access to sound and intelligence. So we can be continually surprised by what we hear other people do. But it may not be liberating them, the artist, or anybody else. And that's really what the question is here. What do you play that liberates you and your people?
So does liberation then come from openness?
Who knows? Does it come from time? Does it come from need? Does it come from conditions? Does it come from self? Does it come from a deeper place or a higher place? We have to say, who knows? See? So liberation is that. See? Who knows? It is such. See?